The Afghan sun beat down mercilessly on forward operating base Chapman, casting long shadows across the dusty compound. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos knelt beside her rifle, methodically cleaning the barrel of her M2010 enhanced sniper rifle with the same precision she applied to everything in her military career. Dust was the enemy here, more persistent than the Taliban fighters who occasionally tested their perimeter. It crept into every crevice, every mechanism, threatening to jam the delicate components that could mean the difference between life and death. Maria had been in Afghanistan for 8 months now, part of a specialized reconnaissance unit that operated from this remote outpost near the Pakistani border. The base housed roughly 200 soldiers, but only a handful were qualified marksmen like herself. She had earned her place through years of training, countless hours on firing ranges, and an innate ability to read wind patterns and calculate bullet drop that even impressed her instructors back at Fort Benning. The morning routine never varied. Wake at 0500 hours, physical training, breakfast, equipment maintenance, and briefings. Today felt different, though. Intelligence reports had been streaming in about increased enemy activity in the surrounding valleys. A high-value target had reportedly been spotted moving through the region, someone important enough to warrant special attention from higher command. As Maria worked the cleaning rod through her rifle barrel, she thought about the letter she had received from her younger brother Miguel the previous week. He was finishing his senior year of high school back in El Paso, Texas, and had been accepted to several universities. Her family had sacrificed so much to give their children opportunities they never had. Maria's father worked double shifts at a construction company, while her mother cleaned offices at night after her day job at a grocery store. Military service had been Maria's path to college, but it had become something more. She discovered she had a gift for precision shooting that went beyond mere training. Her instructors noticed it first during basic marksmanship training. Where other recruits struggled to hit targets at 300 meters, Maria was consistently placing shots in tight groupings at twice that distance. Her natural steady hand, combined with an almost supernatural ability to read environmental conditions, marked her as someone special. The sound of boots on gravel interrupted her thoughts. Sergeant First Class David Chen approached, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and wearing the expression he always wore when delivering important news. "Santos, finish up there. We've got a briefing in 10 minutes. Something big is happening." Maria nodded, completing her cleaning routine with practiced efficiency. She had learned early in her career that rushing equipment maintenance was a mistake that could cost lives. Every component of her rifle was inspected, cleaned, and properly lubricated. The M2010 was a precision instrument capable of accurate shots beyond 1,000 meters in the right hands. In Maria's hands, it was something approaching legendary among the unit. The briefing room buzzed with tension as soldiers filed in. Major Thompson, the unit commander, stood at the front beside a large topographical map of the surrounding region. Red pins marked known enemy positions, while blue pins indicated friendly forces. A cluster of yellow pins in a valley 15 kilometers north marked something new. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have received credible intelligence regarding a gathering of high-value targets in the Korengal Valley," Major Thompson began. "Drone surveillance has confirmed the presence of at least 3 individuals on our priority list, including someone we've been hunting for the better part of 2 years. The Major gestured to a satellite photograph showing a compound built into the hillside. Multiple buildings surrounded a central courtyard, with clear sight lines extending for kilometers in every direction. It was a fortress designed by someone who understood the value of defensive positioning. The problem is accessibility. The compound sits on elevated terrain with excellent visibility in all directions. Any conventional approach would be detected long before we could get within effective range. Airstrikes are not an option due to civilian populations in the surrounding area." Maria studied the photograph intently, her mind automatically calculating angles, distances, and potential shooting positions. There was something about the terrain that looked familiar, similar to training grounds she had worked on back in the States. The valley floor provided multiple concealment options, but the distances involved would be extreme. "This is where our reconnaissance capabilities become crucial," the major continued. "We need eyes on the target, accurate intelligence about movements and numbers, and if the opportunity presents itself, precision elimination of key individuals." Sergeant Chen leaned forward. "What kind of distances are we talking about, sir?" Major Thompson consulted his notes. "Potential observation posts range from 2,000 to 3,000 meters from the target compound. We're talking about shots that push the absolute limits of our equipment and training." Maria felt her pulse quicken. 3,000 meters was beyond the normal operational range for most sniper systems. It required perfect conditions, exceptional skill, and more than a little luck. She had trained at such distances, but had never taken a combat shot beyond 2,000 meters. The briefing continued with details about insertion methods, communication protocols, and extraction plans. Maria would be part of a 4-person team including herself, Sergeant Chen as her spotter, Corporal Williams for security, and Specialist Rodriguez as the communications specialist. They would be inserted by helicopter under cover of darkness and would have to hike 8 kilometers to reach their observation post. After the briefing, Maria returned to her equipment, double-checking everything she would need for an extended mission in hostile territory. Her rifle case contained not just the M2010, but also a comprehensive set of tools for field maintenance. Ammunition was carefully selected, each round inspected for defects that could affect accuracy at extreme range. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders as she prepared. This was not just another training exercise or routine patrol. Intelligence suggested that eliminating these targets could significantly disrupt enemy operations in the region. Success could save the lives of countless soldiers and civilians. Failure meant missed opportunities and potentially compromised positions that could endanger her entire team. As evening approached, Maria found herself on the base perimeter, looking out across the rugged landscape that would be their area of operations. The mountains rose like ancient guardians, their peaks shrouded in clouds that would complicate wind calculations. She thought about the thousands of hours of training that had brought her to this moment, the countless rounds fired in practice, the physics equations memorized until they became second nature. Her father had taught her to shoot when she was 12 years old, using an old hunting rifle to take down jackrabbits that threatened their small garden. Even then, she had shown unusual aptitude, consistently hitting targets that challenged much more experienced shooters. What started as a way to help put food on the table had evolved into something approaching artistry. The helicopter insertion was scheduled for 2,300 hours, giving them the cover of darkness for the initial approach. Maria spent the remaining time reviewing meteorological reports, studying topographical maps, and mentally rehearsing the hundreds of variables that could affect a long-range shot. Wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, elevation differences, and even the rotation of the Earth all became factors in calculations that would determine success or failure. Corporal Williams approached as she was making final adjustments to her scope. "You ready for this, Santos? 3,000 meters is a hell of a long way." Maria looked up from her rifle, meeting his gaze with quiet confidence. "Every shot I've ever taken has been preparation for something like this. The distance doesn't change the fundamentals. Steady position, sight picture, breathing, trigger control. Physics is physics, whether it's 300 meters or 3,000. The truth was more complex than her confident words suggested. At extreme ranges, the smallest error in calculation or execution was magnified exponentially. A wind estimate off by just a few miles per hour could mean missing the target by several feet. Temperature variations could affect muzzle velocity enough to cause significant elevation errors. Even the shooter's heartbeat became a factor that required precise timing. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Maria completed her final preparations. Her equipment was arranged with military precision, every item in its designated place. The M2010 was secured in its case, ready for the journey ahead. Ammunition was carefully packed to prevent damage during the insertion and movement to their observation post. The sound of rotor blades in the distance announced the arrival of their transportation. A UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter settled onto the landing zone, its crew already briefed on the mission parameters. Maria and her team moved quickly to board, their gear loaded efficiently to maximize space and maintain proper weight distribution. As the helicopter lifted off into the darkness, Maria watched the lights of the forward operating base fade below them. Soon they would be alone in hostile territory, dependent on their training, their equipment, and each other. The next 48 hours would test everything she had learned about precision shooting, fieldcraft, and operating under pressure. The aircraft flew low to avoid detection, following terrain features that provided natural concealment from enemy radar and observation posts. Through her night vision goggles, Maria could see the landscape passing below, memorizing landmarks that would help with navigation during their ground movement. 30 minutes into the flight, the crew chief signaled that they were approaching the insertion point. The team conducted final equipment checks, ensuring that everything was properly secured for the fast rope descent that would put them on the ground. Maria felt the familiar mixture of anticipation and focus that preceded combat operations. The helicopter flared as it reached the designated landing zone, hovering just above the rocky terrain. One by one, the team members rappelled down thick ropes, their boots touching Afghan soil with practiced silence. Within minutes, they had retrieved their equipment and moved away from the landing zone as the Black Hawk disappeared into the darkness. Now the real work began. 8 kilometers of difficult terrain lay between them and their observation post, through valleys that could conceal enemy patrols and across ridgelines that exposed them to potential detection. Maria adjusted the weight of her pack and checked her compass bearing. Every step from this point forward brought them closer to a confrontation that would test the absolute limits of her abilities as a precision marksman. The team moved through the darkness like shadows, their night vision equipment turning the treacherous mountain terrain into a green-tinted landscape of opportunity and danger. Maria carried her rifle case across her back, feeling its familiar weight as they navigated narrow goat paths and loose shale that threatened to announce their presence to anyone listening. Sergeant Chen led the way, his years of experience in this region evident in every carefully chosen step. After 4 hours of steady climbing, they reached a plateau that offered their first clear view of the target valley. Maria set up her spotting scope and studied the distant compound through the pale green glow of her night vision. Even at this distance, she could make out the defensive positions, the guard towers, and the commanding view the enemy had of the surrounding terrain. It was immediately clear why this location had been chosen as a stronghold. The team established a temporary observation post behind a cluster of large boulders that provided both concealment and protection from the wind that constantly swept across the exposed ridgeline. Specialist Rodriguez deployed his communication equipment, establishing contact with the forward operating base and confirming their successful insertion. The radio chatter was kept to absolute minimum, using predetermined code words to report their status. As dawn approached, Maria began the meticulous process of preparing her rifle for what could be the most challenging shot of her career. The M2010 emerged from its protective case like a precision instrument being prepared for surgery. Every component was inspected again, despite the careful maintenance performed before their departure. In the thin air at this elevation, even the smallest mechanical issue could affect performance. Sergeant Chen sat up beside her with his own spotting scope, beginning the complex calculations that would determine if a shot was even possible from their current position. The rangefinder indicated 2,140 meters to the main courtyard of the compound. Maria felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. This was beyond anything she had attempted in combat, pushing into the realm of shots that existed more in legend than reality. The sun rose slowly over the eastern peaks, revealing the full scope of their challenge. The target compound clung to the mountainside like a medieval fortress, its walls built from the same stone as the surrounding cliffs. Multiple buildings surrounded a central courtyard where intelligence suggested their targets would appear during morning prayers. Guard posts were positioned to observe all approaches, but their elevation and distance made the team's position virtually invisible to casual observation. Through her rifle scope, Maria could see individual details of the compound's construction. Prayer rugs were spread in the courtyard and smoke rose from cooking fires. Soon figures began moving between buildings as the inhabitants started their daily routines. Every movement was noted, patterns established, potential targets identified through careful comparison, with photographs provided during their briefing. The environmental conditions were far from ideal. Wind speeds at their elevation were gusting between 15 and 20 miles per hour, with occasional stronger gusts that would make accurate shooting impossible. Temperature variations created mirage effects that distorted images through the scope. Humidity levels affected both visibility and ammunition performance. Maria found herself constantly adjusting her calculations as conditions changed. Corporal Williams maintained security, his eyes scanning the surrounding terrain for any signs of enemy movement. The team's position was strong defensively, but they were far from reinforcement if discovered. Their extraction plan depended on remaining undetected until the mission was complete. Discovery would likely mean a fighting retreat through terrain that favored defenders who knew every path and hiding place. By mid-morning, the compound showed increased activity. Vehicles arrived carrying what appeared to be additional personnel. Through his spotting scope, Sergeant Chen identified several individuals who matched descriptions from their intelligence briefings. The high-value targets were present, but no clear shot opportunities had presented themselves. The courtyard remained busy with guards and civilians, making selective targeting impossible without risking unacceptable collateral damage. Maria settled into the patient mindset that separated professional snipers from ordinary marksmen. Hours might pass before the perfect opportunity arose. Her position behind the rifle remained steady, muscles relaxed but ready to respond instantly when the moment came. This was perhaps the most challenging aspect of precision shooting at extreme range, maintaining perfect readiness while waiting for conditions to align. The physics involved in a 2,240-meter shot were staggering. The bullet would travel for over 3 seconds before reaching its target, during which time the Earth's rotation would actually affect its trajectory. Wind conditions could change multiple times during the bullet's flight, requiring predictions about atmospheric conditions along the entire path. Temperature differences between their position and the target could affect air density enough to alter bullet drop significantly. Sergeant Chen worked continuously with his calculator and weather instruments, updating firing solutions as conditions changed. Every few minutes he would whisper new data to Maria, adjustments measured in minutes of angle that translated to feet at the target distance. The margin for error was so small that even perfect calculations could be defeated by variables beyond their ability to measure or predict. Around noon, the activity in the compound shifted again. Several important-looking individuals emerged from the main building and gathered in the courtyard. Through the spotting scope, Chen confirmed positive identification of their primary target, a bomb maker whose improvised explosive devices had killed dozens of coalition soldiers over the past 2 years. For the first time since arriving at their position, they had a clear shot opportunity. Maria settled deeper into her shooting position, feeling her heartbeat slow as she entered the focused state that had served her throughout her career. The crosshairs of her scope settled on the distant figure, barely visible as a human form at this extreme range. She began her breathing routine, timing her respiratory cycle to minimize movement during the critical moment of trigger activation. Wind conditions at the target appeared lighter than at their position, but gusts were still affecting the mirage patterns visible through the scope. Maria made minute adjustments to her point of aim, compensating for the wind's predicted effect on bullet trajectory. The shooting solution called for holding 37 clicks left and 42 clicks up from her zero position. Adjustments so extreme they pushed her scope to its mechanical limits. The target moved slowly across the courtyard, pausing occasionally to speak with guards or other individuals. Maria tracked his movement, waiting for him to stop in a position that offered the clearest shot with minimal risk to others nearby. Professional ethics demanded precision, not just in marksmanship, but in target selection. Every shot taken in combat carried moral weight beyond simple mechanical execution. A gust of wind shook their position, strong enough to require Maria to pause her shooting sequence. At 2,940 meters, even a slight movement of her rifle could translate to a miss, measured in yards rather than inches. She waited for the wind to settle, feeling the seconds tick by as the opportunity potentially slipped away. Patience was as crucial as accuracy in precision shooting. Chen's voice was barely audible as he provided updates on wind conditions and target movement. The wind had settled slightly, creating what might be the best shooting conditions they would see all day. The target had stopped near the center of the courtyard, isolated from other individuals by several meters. If there was ever going to be a perfect moment, this was approaching it. Maria's finger found the trigger, applying the gradual pressure that would fire the rifle when her sight picture was perfect. Years of training had taught her to ignore the target itself during the final moment, focusing instead on sight alignment and trigger control. At this distance, the human figure was barely visible, just a shape in the crosshairs that represented the culmination of months of intelligence gathering and planning. The environmental conditions seemed to pause, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Wind indicators showed the steadiest conditions they had seen all morning. Temperature was stable, humidity unchanged. Even the mirage effects had settled into predictable patterns that Chen could account for in his calculations. Maria felt the familiar sensation of everything clicking into place, the moment when training and instinct aligned perfectly. She began her final breathing sequence, feeling her body settle into absolute stillness. The crosshairs rested precisely on the calculated point of aim, adjusted for every variable they could measure or predict. Her trigger finger applied steady pressure, increasing gradually until the firing pin would release and send the carefully selected bullet on its 3-second journey across the valley. The sound of activity from the compound drifted across the distance, reminding them that they were observing real people living their daily lives, however misguided their cause might be. Maria pushed aside any emotional considerations, focusing on the tactical situation and the potential lives that could be saved by eliminating this particular threat to coalition forces. Through his spotting scope, Chen confirmed that other individuals had moved away from the immediate target area. The shot would be clean, with minimal risk of unintended casualties. Intelligence reports indicated that the target was directly responsible for training others in bomb-making techniques, making his elimination a high priority that could disrupt enemy operations for months. Maria's world narrowed to the space between her rifle scope and the distant target. Years of training compressed into a single moment of perfect focus. The trigger moved slowly under her finger, approaching the point of release that would test every skill she had developed as a precision marksman. At 2,940 meters, this would be a shot that pushed the boundaries of what was possible with current technology and human capability. The morning sun had climbed higher, changing the light conditions in the valley and creating new challenges for target identification and range estimation. Shadows shifted across the compound, alternately concealing and revealing details that could affect shot placement. Maria adjusted her scope's focus, ensuring the clearest possible sight picture for what might be her only opportunity. The target's pattern of movement suggested he would remain in the optimal position for only a few more seconds. After that, he would likely return to the relative safety of the building where a shot would be impossible. The window of opportunity was closing rapidly, demanding immediate action despite the extreme difficulty of the shot. Time seemed suspended as Maria's finger completed its steady pressure on the trigger. The M2010 fired with its characteristic sharp crack, the sound echoing off the surrounding peaks as the specially selected match-grade ammunition began its incredible journey across the valley. The recoil, carefully managed through proper shooting technique, barely disturbed her sight picture as she immediately began tracking for the impact. 3.2 seconds. That was the calculated flight time for a bullet to travel 2,240 meters at this elevation and temperature. Maria held her position, watching through the scope as the target continued his movement, completely unaware that a precision projectile was racing toward him at over twice the speed of sound. Beside her, Sergeant Chen had his spotting scope trained on the same area, ready to call the impact and assess the effectiveness of the shot. The bullet struck with devastating accuracy, the target dropping instantly to the courtyard stones. Even at extreme range, the effect was immediately visible through their optics. Chen's voice was barely a whisper as he confirmed what Maria could already see through her scope. Perfect hit. Target is down and not moving. Repeat, target is eliminated. The compound erupted in controlled chaos as guards rushed to the fallen figure and others began scanning the surrounding terrain for the source of the shot. At nearly 3,000 meters distance, their position remained invisible to the enemy, but standard procedure demanded immediate preparation for extraction. Maria began breaking down her rifle with the same methodical precision she had used to set it up, even as part of her mind marveled at what had just been accomplished. Specialist Rodriguez was already on the radio, using coded language to report mission success to the forward operating base. The elimination of their high-value target would trigger a carefully planned extraction sequence, but the team needed to move to their alternate position before helicopter recovery could be attempted. Enemy forces would undoubtedly begin searching for the source of the shot, and their current location would eventually be discovered through systematic investigation. As they gathered their equipment, Maria found herself processing the emotional impact of what had just occurred. The technical achievement was extraordinary. A shot that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in military precision shooting. But beyond the ballistics and calculations was the reality that she had just ended a human life from a distance so great that the target never knew danger existed. The movement to their extraction point required 4 hours of careful navigation through terrain that offered multiple opportunities for ambush. Enemy forces would be alert now, searching for any sign of the sniper team that had demonstrated such deadly capability. Maria carried her rifle case with renewed awareness of its significance. Word of a successful shot at 2,140 meters would spread quickly through military channels, marking her as someone with truly exceptional abilities. During their movement, Chen briefed the team on what he had observed through his spotting scope. The bullet had struck within inches of the intended point of impact, an achievement that bordered on miraculous given the extreme range and challenging environmental conditions. The target had been eliminated instantly, confirming that their intelligence about his location and schedule had been accurate. The extraction helicopter arrived precisely on schedule, its crew already briefed about the successful mission. As they loaded their equipment and prepared for departure, Maria caught sight of several vehicles moving through the valley toward the compound. Enemy reinforcements were responding to the attack, but they were hours too late to interfere with the team's escape. Back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, news of the successful shot spread quickly among the personnel. A confirmed kill at 2,040 meters was something that would be discussed and analyzed for years to come. Maria found herself the center of attention from fellow soldiers, intelligence officers, and visiting personnel who wanted to understand how such an extraordinary feat had been accomplished. Major Thompson debriefed the team personally, going through every detail of the mission from insertion to extraction. The intelligence gathered during their observation would prove valuable for future operations, but it was the successful elimination of the high-value target that would have immediate impact on enemy capabilities in the region. Technical analysis of the shot revealed the full scope of what Maria had achieved. Ballistics experts calculated that the bullet had overcome a drop of over 200 feet during its flight, while wind deflection had been compensated for with exceptional accuracy. The shot represented a convergence of superior equipment, perfect environmental reading, and marksmanship skill that few individuals could have executed successfully. Within days, word of the shot had reached higher command levels and eventually the Pentagon itself. A precision engagement at 2,140 meters represented a new benchmark for military sniper capabilities. Maria received official recognition for her achievement, but more importantly, intelligence reports confirmed that the elimination of the bomb maker had seriously disrupted enemy operations in the region. 3 weeks after the mission, Maria was surprised to find a Navy SEAL Master Chief waiting for her after evening chow. Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb was a legend in special operations circles, known for his expertise in precision shooting and his role in training the military's most elite marksmen. His presence at their remote forward operating base was unusual enough to attract attention from every soldier who recognized his insignia. "Staff Sergeant Santos, I'd like to have a conversation with you about your recent shooting achievement," Webb said, his tone professional but carrying undertones of genuine interest. "I've been analyzing the technical aspects of your 2,940-meter engagement, and I believe you possess capabilities that could be valuable to specialized units." They walked to a quiet area away from the main base activities where Webb could speak more openly about opportunities that existed beyond conventional military assignments. His evaluation of Maria's shot had convinced him that her natural abilities, combined with proper advanced training, could qualify her for the most demanding precision shooting missions conducted by Special Operations Forces. "What you accomplished out there pushes the boundaries of what we previously considered possible," Webb continued. "The combination of technical skill, environmental reading, and mental discipline required for that shot indicates potential for operations that demand absolute precision under extreme conditions. We're always looking for individuals who demonstrate exceptional capabilities." Maria listened carefully as Webb described training opportunities and mission profiles that went far beyond anything she had previously imagined. Special operations units conducted precision shooting missions that required capabilities at the very edge of technological and human limitations. Her demonstrated ability to execute a successful engagement at nearly 3,000 meters had marked her as someone worthy of consideration for such specialized roles. The conversation continued for over an hour, with Webb describing the selection process and training pipeline that could lead to assignments with the most elite military units. The physical and mental demands were extreme, with failure rates that eliminated most candidates before completion. But for those who succeeded, the opportunity to serve in roles that could affect strategic outcomes was unparalleled. Over the following months, Maria continued her regular duties while considering the opportunities that Webb had presented. Her shot in the Korengal Valley had proven that she possessed rare natural abilities, but transitioning to special operations would require sacrifices and commitments that went far beyond her current military obligations. The decision would affect not only her career but her plans for post-military education and civilian life. Intelligence reports continued to confirm the strategic impact of eliminating the bomb maker. His network of trained apprentices had been disrupted, and improvised explosive device incidents in the region decreased significantly. The single shot that had seemed almost impossible to execute had produced results far beyond the elimination of one individual target. As her deployment neared its end, Maria found herself changed by the experience in ways that went beyond professional development. The knowledge that she possessed capabilities that few others could match brought both pride and responsibility. The shot at 2,940 meters had demonstrated that with proper training, preparation, and conditions, the limits of precision shooting could be extended beyond what most considered possible. The final weeks at Forward Operating Base. Chapman passed quickly, with Maria completing her regular duties while processing the various opportunities that had emerged following her extraordinary achievement. Other soldiers continued to seek her out, wanting to understand the technical and mental aspects of executing such a challenging shot. Her willingness to share knowledge and mentor others had marked her as a leader among the unit's marksmen. The day before departure, Maria returned to the maintenance area where she had been cleaning her rifle on that morning when everything changed. The same Afghan dust continued its eternal battle against military equipment, but her perspective on the challenges and opportunities ahead had been transformed completely. The shot that had started as another mission had become the foundation for possibilities she had never imagined. Webb appeared one final time before her departure, carrying orders that would affect her next assignment. "The training pipeline I described is available if you choose to pursue it," he said, handing her an official document. "Your demonstrated capabilities have earned you a direct invitation to selection, bypassing several preliminary requirements. The decision is yours, but opportunities like this don't come often." As the transport aircraft lifted off from Afghanistan, carrying her toward the next phase of her military career, Maria reflected on the chain of events that had begun with routine equipment maintenance and culminated in recognition from the military's most elite units. The dust she had been wiping from her M2010 that morning had concealed capabilities that would reshape her understanding of what was possible in precision shooting. The shot at 2,940 meters had proven that with exceptional skill, proper equipment, and favorable conditions, the boundaries of long-range precision could be extended far beyond conventional limitations. But more than a technical achievement, it had demonstrated that individual excellence could produce strategic results, eliminating threats and saving lives through the precise application of carefully developed abilities. Her decision about special operations training would determine whether her natural gifts would be developed to their fullest potential or remain confined to conventional military roles. The invitation from Senior Chief Webb represented recognition that her capabilities were rare enough to warrant investment in the most demanding training programs the military offered. The aircraft carried her away from the mountains and valleys where she had discovered the extent of her abilities as a precision marksman. Behind her lay the proof that impossible shots could become possible through perfect preparation and flawless execution. Ahead lay decisions that would determine how those abilities would be developed and employed in service to missions that pushed the absolute limits of what individual soldiers could accomplish. The dust would continue to settle on equipment throughout Afghanistan. But for Maria Santos, the act of cleaning that dust from her M2010 had revealed capabilities that would define the trajectory of her military career and potentially affect operations at the highest levels of special warfare. The 2,940-meter shot that had seemed like an impossible challenge had become the foundation for opportunities that most soldiers could never imagine.